Oh, goodness. They got me. All right. We are back. Shout out to Malika. Appreciate that. Hopefully, y'all are still here. We're going to have to do it a different kind of way. This is moving slow as I'm processing it. I had to kind of flip it in order to get this in. Okay. Some of y'all are starting to come back through. I apologize. Try to do the fair use thing, but yeah, it is what it is. I don't know how some channels get away with it, but you know, hey, seems to be what they get away with. So we're gonna try it another way, and it's still processing. Looks like it's gonna take a while. I had to configure it in a way that StreamYards could even use. So it's a bit of a clusterfuck, but it is what it is. So while we're waiting for this to kind of get together, right, starting to examine the impact of lack of or absence of fatherhood on Black men. Shout out to Greg. Appreciate that cash out. Thank you. Mark, what's going on? Good to see you in there. All right, Larry in the house. Chef Mike. LXST. What's going on? Grab Setting Gear Eddie. What's up? Indigo, what's happening? Yeah. So sorry about all of that. These are the YouTube streets we deal with. But anyway, the lack of fatherhood, and some of the brothers in the comment section were already starting to share their stories, you know, and they were already starting to get pretty deep. And you could tell even the way, Kirk Franklin himself is talking about this. This is one that's close to Black men's hearts, and it's amazing to me how quickly it can be dismissed in regard to what we deal with. You know what I'm saying? People quickly dismiss it in many ways. And I think it has, a lasting impact. Now, I know Generation X was really the first to have to deal with this in large numbers or larger numbers, but it continues, despite that many of us try to, be the fathers that we didn't grow up with. I would suspect that the brothers in this space probably did so more than any, right? But the pain that it causes is still difficult. The pain of the absence, the questions of worthiness, also dealing with questions of, how exactly to frame your manhood. I have an assignment that I give in my black male class, my black male studies class, and it's the final assignment at the end of the semester. And what I have people do is they have to trace all of the different references they use to piecemeal their sense of masculinity together. In other words, if they didn't have fathers, most particularly, how exactly did you frame your masculinity? And the reason I did that is because I noticed that in my generation, when we didn't see our fathers often, what we did is we turned to each other as young men and we piecemealed it together. And when I started to really observe this, even within myself as a young man, I noticed that it was things I pulled from my friends, things they said or did. It was clips out of movies. It was segments of songs. Hell, even comedians like Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. I took snippets. I literally piecemealed together my sense of manhood based on media, based on who I ran into contact with. Hell, sometimes something I heard somebody say, in a conversation I wasn't even a part of. This was how delicate and yet how desperate in some respects it was to do this, because there was a lot of pressure, right? There was a lot of pressure, even in terms of dating and marriage. A woman could acknowledge that you didn't have a father, but she still had the same expectations of you. And you had to perform this manhood perfectly, as far as that was concerned. And of course, the society itself didn't allow you a whole lot of slack. You stepped out of line, they were waiting to incarcerate and and put and warehouse away a whole generation of black men. So that being said, um, the piecemealing together of manhood, the meeting of other men, the contestation, the competition in sports, even relationships with coaches, excuse me, across different sports. These were all the ways that I saw and participated in trying to establish what manhood was. And looking at Kirk Franklin for the moment that we were able to actually see him. And I'll put, let's see if I can put the link. I mean, it's pretty, if you look up Kirk Franklin Father's Day on YouTube, you'll find it. I'll put the link in. What I had to do for us to go through it is to kind of just take the sound quality, the sound, and kind of link it to an image so we can at least go through some of this and stop and talk about it in relevant segments as you all see fit, most particularly. We'll see how much of this we can get through. I wanted to cut through some of the music, even though it is important to who he is. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about him if it wasn't for that. But at the end of the day, I want us to get through this because some of the things that take place are incredibly relevant for us. Malika says, I agree. Says, I kind of did the same thing too growing up. It was very confusing and awkward. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are still Richard Pryor performances I can listen to, and I can see where the way I even say certain words, the way I stand when I make a certain kind of statement, a lot of that came from bits and pieces of things, even from men that I knew, even from other people's fathers, and of course my own. I didn't get to see my father often, but when I did get to see him, there were things that I took from just his very presentation, how he stood, how he looked, how he spoke, all of those kind of things. These were the links that many of us had to go to try and piecemeal together who we were and who we wanted to be. Again, in the face of a great deal of tension. So hold on. All right. So I had to kind of do it this way. And I apologize. It's the best I could kind of do with it. Fair use. But let's see how this came out, because obviously I didn't get a chance to screen it before I'm showing it. So we'll see how it did. Here we go. Let's see if we can get some.
Ears of Deborah. Deborah hears about that there's a man that could be Kirk Franklin's dad. Deborah finds my number, calls, leaves a message.
First saved message.
Kirk wants to know if there's any truth to this or any possibility he can take these swabs and do whatever he wants to do with them, because Mr. Rick doesn't know. He's just responding to the rumors.
And we are very excited to talk with gospel superstar Kirk Franklin and the love of his life, Tammy.
Throughout my career, because I have publicly talked about being adopted, I have had many years of men and women coming out of the woodwork saying that they're my dad. So it wasn't new to me. What was new for me is how close it was to somebody that I knew. So I go get my swabs done, and a couple of weeks later, I get a call from my doctor.
Now, I really, really wish I could play this part for you guys visually, because, when he hears what his doctor has to say, you literally do have to see him, what do you call it? Not just walking around, pacing. You have to see him pacing around the room at the relevance of it. And for those who are just coming in, or if I skipped over a little part of that because I wanted to get past the singing part of it, what's taking place is that a random rumor at a funeral, where, well, I wouldn't say it's a rumor, but there's a certain gentleman that speaks up and said he actually dated Kirk's mother, when they were younger. And so there's a possibility that he is Kirk Franklin's father. Now, it was interesting to hear Kirk himself say that there were several people that have come up over the years to claim being his father. That in and of itself has to be traumatizing on one level or another, to constantly relive the opportunity to find your father and then not, right? So he has a distant relationship with his aunt. She left him a message saying that she would clear up anything about the rumors he might want. And from there, he actually had a DNA test set up. Now, the gentleman in question, who you can see in the image here, he didn't know one way or the other. He didn't know for sure. Kirk didn't know for sure. So this is the doctor calling with the results. Here we go again.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so let me give you these results and not beat around the bush. It says the results are probable paternity 99.9999%.
Percent what?
Real talk.
Yes, he's your father.
You can hear him pacing.
Right there.
A word.
What? What?
He's here.
What? What? What?
Yeah, 99.
What?
Yeah.
What?
You're over
What?
50 years old.
What? This man is my father? This man is my father? My mama lied to me again? I buried the man I thought was my father. I flew to Houston and made peace with him. But in 2017, I got an anonymous phone call that he was dying of cancer. His name's Dwight. I said to him, you know, I'm told that I'm the biggest selling gospel artist in history. I'm told that I've done this, the first of this, the first of that I've won more this than that, more than that. But because I did not have you to tell me who I was, I've always been the most insecure man in the room.
God damn. God damn. I put the link to the actual video there. So if you want to see it, I humbly ask that you follow along, watch it, but actually, if you can, listen in, because we're going to be making observations and as we go through. But I do have to tell you that scene, which is right around the 8-minute mark where he's pacing around, you do have to see it. Because imagine again, you're over 50 years old. Your mother has been dishonest with you about who your father is. You buried the man she told you was your father, while other men have stood up and claimed to be your father and of course weren't. So to actually find that your father is alive and the DNA test is over 99%, what does that do to you? And again, the way this discussion is framed is around the gynocracy, right? So we're looking at the impact the gynocracy can have on a young man, or on a man at this point. So his father and his aunt are the representatives of the gynocracy for the sake of argument in this particular discussion. And he's immediately confronted with having been lied to by his own mother, right?
And he looked at me, he said, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. That's all he could give me. He couldn't give me anything else. And I had to take it. And that was my last time seeing Dwight. Tell me I'm adopted.
So he confronted his, I guess, for the sake of argument, we can call it stepfather or whoever was, Dwight was apparently who he was told was his father. And he confronted him with all the things he was feeling. And all the man could say was, I understand, which many black men do, but it wasn't his actual father. And some of you might have had those experiences, by the way, where you're dealing with a woman you're dating or you're with, and you're dealing with her son, and you're grappling, he's grappling really with this whole question of fatherhood. What role do you play in his life? You're actually trying to help, but you may or may not be his father, depending on your situation. These are the kind of things that black men grapple with.
I'm adopted, and I've lived my whole life trying to figure out who I am. I'm saying that I have hated one man my whole life.
I know, and you were hating the wrong.
And he didn't deserve it. This man went to his grave.
But you had only the...
This man went to his grave. I gotta process this moment, because I'm processing a lie.
Yeah.
I'm processing a lie.
Yeah.
I gotta go. I have to go. Okay, I gotta go. Okay. I gotta go.
What up, what up?
Hey.
around, people.
The journey of life can be really messy. It's not pretty. And this is my mess. This is my beautiful, ugly mess. So, you guys are aware of the situation. This man is my daddy. This man is my daddy. I'm gonna have to go to this guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to go to this dude, man. Oh boy, so in the middle of this record, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing in the middle of the record. So, you know, we're just gonna get it in. And, so I just want y'all to know that it's real.
Yeah. Hello.
Sandra.
Who?
Aunt,
Who'd you call her?
Aunt Sandra.
Thank you. Okay. Hi.
So, yeah. Now, I can tell you when you watch this, Sandra and his mother, that's, I believe, his aunt, as he just said, there's a lot of tension there. There's a lot of tension. And I may have missed it, but I didn't really hear what had really went down with his aunt. But the first conversation they record him having, he calls, as you just heard, she picks up, and, you know, immediately she wants to be greeted by the proper term, you know, in terms of aunt. And you can tell he doesn't want to call her that, right? So the tension is already there, right? And she refuses to go further until he identifies her as aunt. But for a young man in the family to not want to, and I keep saying young man, but I'm thinking of him in terms of his entire life. He doesn't want to call you aunt. There's a reason, you know, and yet she requires it, right? And you can tell he doesn't want to.
Kirk.
You know, that's not something that I appreciate, but I'm not going to get that deep into it. You know, if that's how you want to continue to communicate with me, listen, I need to see you and Deborah.
Okay. So how do you want me to get back with you?
I'm going to text you.
Number?
No, I'm going to text you this number.
Okay.
I'm going to text you this number and just give me a call back.
All right then.
Okay, thank you. So it's a lot. I'll be Dr. Acho tomorrow. That's my therapist. Call him tonight. Get up. I don't care if you come to the office in your drawers. I need you. I would say to anyone who has lived in a history of trauma like I have, that's why I'm my therapist's longest patient. I just want to remind you that you deserve so much more. If I didn't have music to work on in the middle of this, I don't think I would make it through this. Thank y'all for being here with me.
We wouldn't be nowhere else.
People that I work with, they become my family. Love you, King.
Tell Kim I'm your BFF. He's my BFF.
They are part of making this album with me. They are part of the journey with me. So I'm letting them hear and see what I'm going through, to hopefully for a moment just to feel is what we're going through. I didn't postpone this album. I needed this album. I needed to be around people. I needed to work. I needed to be away.
It's powerful. That's super powerful. It's captivating, for sure.
Yeah.
God, no. Yeah.
I give up every trophy that I've won just to be somebody's son. I'm running. I can't wait a minute. I think that I'm just still feeling the numbness of just being lost in the moment of what does this mean? What am I supposed to do moving forward with this?
Yeah, fair use before they kick me off for just the audio. But yeah, I apologize, Ace, for not answering the question. But yeah, Deborah, I believe, is his mother. And you know, he was initially talking to his aunt. So he called his aunt to say that he wanted to see his mother. So yeah, Fair use.
We went over there and the anxiety was off the charts. It was crazy. I don't feel all of the stuff that you feel in movies. I'm just feeling numb. And at the same time, I'm also preparing my heart. This man lives down the street from my recording studio. He lives in the same city that I work in. His house is adjacent to a house that my youngest son would go play at when he was in high school. Oh my gosh. I'm just panicking.
Well, he's at his aunt's house. Mother.
Gentlemen. Enter. Come to break up with me. Hey, my name's Kirk.
You know, I see him. I can't even tell you what I felt, what I was thinking. I was just lost, not knowing what to do. Not knowing what to do.
There's no judgment, and I hope that you know, whatever. I still don't know the outcome of this testing because I didn't feel like that was for me.
Okay, so just to clarify, he's about to confront his mother, I believe, and the gentleman who, you know, actually passed the DNA test is also in attendance. If I remember correctly, he came in by himself. The aunt, the mother is there, Kirk's there, and it's all about to go down.
To know you're the most important person in this equation in figuring out your history.
So you're saying to me that it never came up, that I've always wondered if I was...
That was not mine. It was never in
Somebody just looked at you. And just looked at you, and when you had said that you and Deborah had dated, and somebody just looked. Now, when Deborah got pregnant, were you around?
kid.
But it wasn't big news when Deborah got pregnant.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Because you know, because you know what I mean, during that time, in such a small neighborhood like Riverside, because Riverside's a little
very, very small neighborhood. I don't remember that kind of talk or gossip or anything like that. It never occurred to me that at any point in my life, with anybody that I've ever been with, that you could have a child with that person or that person or that person. Because I can tell you, had I been aware of any such possibility, I would have pursued the truth about it.
Okay, I think I was wrong. So at this particular session, he's showing the results to the gentleman who took the test, and he, as you just heard, he had no idea that there was a possibility. Now, how, with all the rage that you would have in Kirk's situation, how then do you deal with a man who is more than likely your father, but didn't even know there was a possibility you existed, as far as you being his son, right? You actually can't carry that rage onto him because he didn't even know that was a reality, right? Now this man, again, you can see the look on his face. He's taking his glasses off. He's wiping his face. He's crying. You know what I mean? He had no idea. Kirk is crying. He's stunned. They're just sitting there. 1 over 50, 1 over 70, I believe.
Sorry.
Later.
It's not your fault. You didn't know.
I'm sorry.
Hey, didn't know.
I didn't, man. And had I known, you would have known. And I would have been You didn't.
Now, we talk about these kind of issues on a variety of levels when it comes to divorce, when it comes to custody. We talk about Black men who've been robbed of the opportunity to be fathers, right? So if you look at the gynocracy in the mainstream society, when they talk about Black fathers, it's always this deadbeat narrative that became very popular going back to at least the 1960s. But what we don't talk about are the men who are frustrated justifiably because they've been robbed of an opportunity to be a father. This is happening with Kirk and the gentleman who's his father on an unprecedented level, right? An unprecedented level. Your son is 50 and you're just finding out he's yours. Can you imagine, to a man that values fatherhood, how that would feel? What does that do to you? Here we go.
You didn't know. All right. Let me feel it. Let me get myself.
No, it's fine. Come here, man. Come here, man.
They're about to
give me a chance. This is going to be a lot, but I want to hug you. Please forgive me if it's not the best hug.
No, bro. Just.
Now again, I want you guys. This is another one, and I apologize. I should have had this set up differently, as opposed to just trying to play the video. That way, I at least could have shown you key pictures. But there's this moment that's happening right now, right? Kirk has his fists balled up. Now he's not about to hit him or anything, but it's just the emotion of it. He's got his eyes closed. He's got his head down. He's got his fists balled up. His father walked away for a second, just out of just exasperation. And he comes right back and he kind of grabs Kirk and starts hugging him. And so, as you heard him say, Kirk says, I apologize if this is not going to be the best hug, but he breaks down and those fists open up and he's embracing his father, because you have all this pent up frustration and now you cannot direct it at him. He's not a deadbeat. Nobody told him, right? This is the reality he's grappling with the same way you are.
He didn't even know. He didn't even know he had a son. And I didn't even know I had a father. That close. I was that close. I was that close to having a daddy. I wanted a daddy so bad. All them sleepless nights, all the days I got my kicked at school, all of those times I was messing up. And
this is particularly frustrating because it takes us back to Antoine Fisher. If you remember the film Antoine Fisher, he never knew who his mother was. He was looking for his mother or his father, but I think his father had died and was killed by one of his girlfriends, right? So the whole movie, he's looking for his family. He finds out his mother is around the corner, right? So those streets he's walked 1,000 times to and from school, getting into fights, living in an abusive environment, doesn't know who his mother is. And when he finally finds her, she's around the corner, right? Similar kind of dynamic going on with here. I mean, he just said he lives down the street from his studio. How many times has he driven down that block, walked down that block? How many times did he look possibly at the very house his father was in, not knowing, while looking for his father the entire time, right? So when we talk about trauma, there's a degree of trauma that you can get just having the realization of all of this that's been going on and where people actually were.
Life and had nobody to take up for me. All of those times I didn't know what love was. Love is a muscle that has to be trained. And if it's never been trained, just because you get introduced to it doesn't know you know how to receive it. Is I think that you become indoctrinated in trauma, that you become institutionalized in your trauma, in some sick, warped, broken way. You wonder, who am I? Well, 'cause I've only known me broken. I scheduled both meetings in the same day because I don't want there to be a phone call from anybody. I don't want anybody being able to have a conversation about
Now he's about to meet his mother on the same day, going through
this except for me. I want to be in full control of how it's revealed, and I don't want anybody to contaminate my reaction, my engagement, because again, this is my story. This is
Now, I don't mean to say meet as if he hasn't met her before, but he hasn't seen her in 23 years. So he's about to see his mother and his aunt, who he apparently hasn't seen in 23 years as well. Aunt Sandra. Here we go.
My moment. So I was intentional.
Hi.
Get your ass out.
Did she sign the paper?
I ain't signed shit yet. Come on.
You have to sign the paper.
I will, on the inside.
No, sign it right now. Auntie Sandra, please.
Oh, okay, you call
Did
me.
Deborah sign?
She's not here yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
You got to see this. She walks up to the car that he's in and says, you need to get your ass out the car. He doesn't want to get out the car until the documents that, you know, it's probably in regard to this being recorded are signed. So he's waiting for her to sign. He will not get out of the car. She's treating him like a child, telling him to get out. He refuses to until everything is signed. He goes in the house and he gives his mother a hug.
She's on her way.
Okay, well, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
stay in here until she comes. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And I already have anxiety because I'm being treated like a 10-year-old little boy. And I'm 53. But I feel like I'm a 10-year-old boy. Like I feel the nervousness like a 10-year-old little boy. Oh, man.
Gives her a hug, his mother.
The pattern of trauma is a very difficult pattern to try to rewrite. It's because not only is it those in the struggle that are trying to rewrite it, but when you have systemic issues that sometimes encompass those that are trying to rewrite and rework, it can make the battle more difficult. Because I want you to know, and I want Aunt Sandra to know, that you not knowing how to love made me not know how to love.
I can believe that.
And I have fought my whole life. I don't want to fully love my wife. I don't want to fully love people. I love through fear. I love through a performance. I always wanted people to like me because I was always wanting to be accepted by, understandably, the two people that I wanted to love me the most, my mom and my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And this Rick situation has shaken my life forever. How in the hell in this small neighborhood does everybody know everybody, but this one little baby got dropped? This one girl is pregnant. She said, this boy's the daddy. He wasn't there. This other one is the daddy. He didn't know, but the baby gets dropped. How does that happen?
Now, to those of you that are saying he's using honey versus vinegar, understand what this moment is. He's trying to get information out of two women, his mother and his aunt, that he hasn't spoken to in over 2 decades. And in many respects, probably doesn't want to speak to, but he needs answers. And if he cusses her out, he won't get answers. Now, you know, I don't imagine a Kirk Franklin or anybody in this situation who doesn't want to do that. There's so much pent up rage and frustration that he has. You can't tell me he doesn't want to cuss her out on one level, while at the same time still loving this woman. So let's be real. Many of us are grappling with this shit in our own families. The very people that abused you on one level or another are the same people that you are hardwired to on a level that you may not even want to admit, even if you never speak to them again. I'm not talking about what you actually do with those people. I'm saying the fact that you are a product of them. There's a part of you, the child in you, that will always, it is what it is. And that's part of the frustration too. That actually adds to the frustration because you don't want to be tied to this person. You don't want to have feelings for them. but part of you can't help it. So there's a lot of conflicting things going on, and we're just talking about the surface of it. But understand, in this moment, he's trying to get information out of her. He ain't seen her or his aunt in 23 years. So this is not him, treating her well just because he loves her and he's forgiven everything. No. This is him trying to get information without snapping off at her and losing the opportunity. So right now they're sitting on the couch. It's his aunt, his mother, and he's on the opposite side. So the couch is U-shaped. They're on one side, he's on the other. They're facing each other. The aunt and the mother are sitting together. He's sitting by himself, and they're reading through some documents. So here we go.
Ability of fraternity?
Yes, ma'am.
100%. How's that possible?
It's not, baby. I can swear on my dead mother's grave, Rick Hubbard is not your father. I don't know what happened, how this paternity test came back 99.95%. But I really would like to get to the bottom of it.
There's so many voices out there right now telling you what they...
So if you missed that, she denied that the DNA test that showed that Rick was his father was true. She denied it. She said she swears on her dead mother or whatever that this can't be true.
feel you need. I found the answers really simple, and it's been there the entire time. My knee-jerk reaction is to be alone. When I feel overwhelmed and not really able to have language to moments, I just need to just be alone. I need to get alone.
Now, why would he need to be alone, right? Somebody who's grown up with this level, this amount of trauma, right? Rejection. The one person you're going to want to be with is the one person you feel like you can trust. Right? So to all of those introverts who are, deep into solitude, some of that is a response to trauma, because at the end of the day, can't nobody fuck me over if I'm sitting here by myself. Right? I got me at the very least. So he keeps saying it over and over again. I just want to be alone. That's his immediate reaction to this type of trauma. How do you think that's affected relationships with women, relationships with his own children? If you don't fundamentally know how to trust, and the only space you can feel like you can trust is when you're by yourself, how does that affect your relationships?
I need grace, I need strength for one more day. I need patience for this race. I need Jesus.
It's 2:30 in the morning, and I am getting up in a few hours to meet my biological mother and Mr. Rick for the second test, because my mother rejected results of the first test.
Little did I know 2 months ago that we would be here, but I'm having such a discussion about the fact that I have a 53-year-old son. It is not something that I was looking for, but I am grateful that I have discovered that I do. I have enough room and enough love in my heart for you and whoever else you choose to bring into my life. Our hearts, our arms, and our doors are open to you for you to enter at your pace, on your terms.
First of all, I've been saying this for the longest. I said this a couple years ago about a young brother who did a video. I think Dr. Umar responded to it. And this young man he's in jail now, if I remember correctly, but he was an actor, and he was in the movie. I'll forget it. I'm seeing it in my head, but I don't remember the name of it right now. But anyway, he had a situation where his mother wouldn't let him see his father most of his life. And eventually, as a grown man, I think he's like probably about 21 or so, he finally went out to see his father, and his father had a box of receipts to prove that he had been sent letters, that child support payments had been sent, all the things in evidence that went against the narrative his mother spun about his father. And then his mother called him while he was sitting with his father. And he said this woman that had emotionally abused him and emotionally and physically and emotionally abused many of the men that he grew up seeing her with, when the father got on the phone with her, she shut up like a little child, right? Probably an alpha widow. But the point that really blew him away was that despite growing up with all these lies, when he finally got to sit down with his father pulled out a box of receipts to prove that he loved his son and had tried to connect with him. I try to tell brothers, if you've never met your father, you never spoken to him, I'm not saying you're gonna have that same experience, but you never know. You might actually have a box of receipts pulled out on you that you were never told about because you only got one side of the story. And even if your father wasn't perfect, there's more than likely something you can pull out of that story that you didn't know that might help you reframe how you understood your own upbringing and what went down. Because a lot of these stories have to do with men being pushed out of families via the state. I talk about this in my book. So if you haven't had a chance to really look at that, check the book out. You'll find out there are ways that the institutions in question that Black men don't have access to were used to push out Black men from the family. And your father might have been one of those men. And keep in mind, like even when I talked to my father about this work, when I first started doing it and I talked to him, he was in tears about having something explained to him that he lived, but there wasn't a language for this. So I was born in 74. I'm telling my father and his boy, my godfather, I'm telling them about the data in the 1970s that they lived through, but it doesn't mean they understood what was happening. Just like right now, many of us are going through shit, but 30 years from now, 40 years from now, you're going to understand 2023 in a way then that you can't understand now. It's the same kind of deal, right? Now, in this situation with Kirk Franklin and his father, Rick is handling this. You couldn't handle it any better if you wrote it as part of a script to a movie. He just told him, we're gonna do this at your pace. My door is open to you. And he gets up and he hugs him in the middle of this session in front of his mother and his aunt, who up to now haven't said a word. So he's letting him know, I'm here. You're 53. I just found out about you the other day. I'm here. My door is open to you, but we're going to go at the pace that you're ready for. What does that do to somebody like Kirk Franklin in this moment? To have that offer, but it's not thrown on him. It's not imposed on him. He's not being forced to take something he's not ready for. He's saying, I'm here when you're ready. I ain't going nowhere. And he hugs him in that moment. Just before we're going to hear from the mother about her responses to the second test and of course the results. So here we go. Because we may be wrong, right? There may have been a lab tech who did the DNA sampling who was actually the father and dropped a hair follicle in. Hey, we might be wrong, right? Let's see.
Because it is about you. It is about you.
When I was homeless and hungry and begging for food and at the pawn shop, pawning Gertrude's lawnmower just to get some food, taking Carry-On down to the child support office by myself. I'm behind on my child support and he's got to go with me because I ain't got no babysitter. My car's been repoed off the church parking lot. That's my story.
This I cannot accept because this is not true. And I apologize from the bottom of my heart on this.
Two tests that I put in front of you. I need to hear you. I need to hear you clearly. The little Kirk, the little boy Kirk needs to hear you. Are you saying that you reject the results of these two tests? That's what I need to hear.
Yes.
So if you didn't catch it, right? She just rejected the results of the second test as well, verifying that Rick is his biological father. This is just after Rick has embraced him on multiple levels. His mother is still rejecting this.
My denial, is that going to put a wedge between you and I?
Yes. Okay. Yes. If you can't give me this, no hug, no word of encouragement, no sugar, no joke, nothing can substitute what I deserve and what I've needed and what I've missed.
He just wants the truth. The DNA. The DNA.
The DNA.
Yes.
I need my mama to give me.
And I need my son too. I have wanted this.
Now, two things. And you have to see this if you get a chance to watch this, right? I put the link already in the chat. When you get a chance, look at the visuals. The aunt is turning on the mother, right? The aunt is just saying, look, he just, just basically admit it. That's what she's saying to her. And the mother wouldn't. Here's the second observation, and this is where it gets deep. And for those who haven't experienced it, I don't know what to tell you. Tears from women can be used as a weapon. Now, we know white women use these tears quite effectively. They use it politically. They use it socially. They have been known to send men to lynchings behind these fake tears. The mother in this situation immediately goes for crying, right? Because she's seeing the room turn on her. Her own sister is turning on her and saying, look, you just tell him, basically. And the mother keeps refusing to do so. So the first thing she goes to is crying. Understand something. It's one thing for a random woman you're dating to cry over something. It's another thing for a woman in an argument to cry. It's another thing for your wife or your daughter. And the daughter one can be really powerful, crying about something. When it's your mother and it's in the face of verified information, but she's still unwilling to tell the truth, a truth you need, the amount of damage that is compounding for someone who's already lived the life Kirk Franklin has lived is immeasurable. So she's using tears in this moment to deflect from the reality that has been verified scientifically, right?
If my mama watches this, I want her to know.
And I still can't have you.
That I have lost so much not having you. And it would have been really, really, really nice to get that from you. The old adage, hurt people hurt people. So I just gotta live with this reality. It's my reality of what you can't give me. And then I must make difficult choices of what I can give you. I would say to my 24-year-old self that what you do is not who you are, and your identity was never to be in your gift.
This too much, way too much for me. The baby is doing it's the baby. It's not.
It was way too much for her.
Way too much for us. We could not handle it.
I've been down before.
Yes, sir.
Back in the studio.
I was born at the end.
Yes, sir.
Had to learn how to fly. Loneliness was my friend.
There's no way that I could talk about a son meeting a father, and a father being introduced to his son for the first time at 53 years, and not address the challenges that I've had with my son. And so I reached out to him because, first of all, that's his grandfather, so he needs to know. And so this was a moment to try to find reconciliation, find a moment.
Now, some of you may know Kirk's story with his son far better than I. I heard little pieces of it over the years, but suffice it to say, I know they don't get along. And if you watch this documentary, even seeing them sitting in the same room, you can see how much rage and frustration Kirk's son has for him, much the same way he had for his own father, right? But I don't know the particularities as to how that happened. I'm more than sure some of you do. I never really got into Kirk Franklin. That wasn't, even what he was doing in gospel was not a movement I was a participant of. My wife, however, was. So my relationship to his music is through her love for it. I never really got into it one way or the other, but I could recognize, the genius behind some of the work he's done. I can appreciate the movement he spearheaded in terms of younger Black Christians in the 90s, but I can't say I can go much further than that. It wasn't my era, it wasn't my movement. Nevertheless, here we go.
What do you want to say? I want you to be comfortable. Just what do you want to say? You just tell me whatever makes you comfortable.
What do you want to say then?
Do you want to know about what I'm about to share with you?
It already hurts and I don't even know what it is. Every text message I've sent you hasn't been responded to.
Well, I know we got a lot of other things that we have to deal with and address, but I have something that I think that when you find this out, it's going to be life-changing. So, I don't know how much you know, and not to just make assumptions that you know all the details and nuances.
99.9%. He's your father. What?
So obviously the son is watching the moment where, his father, Kirk Franklin, found out the results of the test and immediately breaks into tears, right? Even though he and his father are estranged, they haven't spoken, immediately falls into tears because now he knows who his grandfather is.
Wow, 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 wow. 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 Oh my goodness. So when the storm came, I looked deep in my soul. When the planet got.
Now, real quick, there's something I want to, while they're breaking into song, which I'm not normally a fan of, but with this, I'll go with whatever they got to do. There's a question asked in the comment section by Orland. And he says, here's a question. Did he want to be the or a father? Right. I do think they mentioned whether or not he had kids sometime in this broadcast. I don't recall for sure, but I will say this just adds to the man's character that much more, because you're right. He could have responded by saying, look, man, I'm sorry it's happening this way, but I never wanted kids. I really don't even want them now. He could have done that. And he, technically he had every right to. But the way he chose to handle it was to actually embrace him and say, I got you. My door's open. We handle this at the pace you're willing to go. That, to me, is it. You couldn't really ask for better in that situation in terms of the response that he got, right? You really couldn't ask for better. So I salute this man for being willing to do it. But again, we're also dealing with the reality of, him as a father being, robbed from that experience, because the opposite of that could have been true. He might have wanted, had he known. And I think he talked about this when they first found out. He said, man, if I'd have known, your life would have never been like that. And I'm paraphrasing, right? That's a huge statement to someone who's been imagining their father their entire life. A huge statement. If I knew, I would have got you from childhood. You would have never had to live in an adopted situation. You wouldn't have went through a life without birthday parties, without gifts, without love. To have someone tell you that, it's nowhere near able to replace what you haven't gotten, but to at least know that your biological father wanted to provide it had he known you existed. God damn. Here we go.
I knew just where to go.
This is the only thing that I need that's been missing from my life. This right here. There's nothing I ask God for every single day I wake up. I have everything that I want except you and my grandfather. I love you, man.
Calling the album Father's Day. And the long line is what I missed, where I am, and what's always been. I'm sorry for every moment that you have felt. Whatever you have felt for me as your dad, I want you to know that I'm sorry.
I forgive you, Daddy. I have to forgive you because you've forgiven me. All of the things that I've done outside of our family and within our family.
You know, I haven't seen my son in almost 10 years like that. And so I'm looking forward to touching his face more and being close to him more as much as possible. Now, we're still a work in progress. I mean, this is our journey. This is going to be our journey for a while.
I know somehow how the story will end. See, I believe God for more. And if He did it before, He will do it again. Oh, I believe you can, because I know what you can do, Jesus.
You know, I have a dream. I have this vision of a Father's Day picture with my sons, Mr. Rick, and it's a picture of Black excellence. It's a picture of reconciliation. It's a picture of our people, our struggle. All the people that were displaced and misplaced as soon as they landed on the eastern seaboard. When they stepped into the soils of this country, removed from their families, given names that were not originally theirs. And this homecoming of a moment where that all the pain that we've experienced has a purpose, and that we're men, we're Black men, men of color, men of persecution, men of struggle, men of faith, men of God, broken but not bruised, knocked down but not destroyed. The picture is a snapshot of all of the millions of Black men in this country that never got a chance to get together for that shot. And I don't know when and if and how, but I have that image in my mind and I have that shot in my mind.
Okay, I'm gonna read some of the things that they're showing on the screen. You know, so they're showing Kirk playing the piano, of course, and he's kind of narrating, but the screen reads, Kirk has not spoken with Deborah, his mother, since their last meeting where the results of the second DNA test were revealed. Now, keep in mind, when he revealed the first test to her, he hadn't talked to her in 23 years as it was, right? So, you know, and she earned every bit of that because he told her, she asked him, is this going to have an impact on our relationship? He said, hell yeah. And I'm paraphrasing. The second thing they put up, Kirk and Rick stay in touch as they navigate this new father-son dynamic. Rick has allowed Kirk to move at a pace comfortable for him. Yes, at an earlier point in the video, Ace, he called his father Mr. Rick. That's going to take some time. It is what it is. You can't get to 53 and you just meeting your father and everything just flows smooth. And this is as smooth as it can be. Now, we're obviously not privy to whatever little missteps or whatever may have happened. This is, after all, being presented on television, you know, but at the end of the day, I still argue this is about as smooth as you're going to get in this kind of a situation. And I think it has promise in terms of the relationship. It next says, Rick has also reached out to Carrion and hopes to help him along his journey, right? Kirk and Carrion have talked more often since their last meeting. They continue on a journey of healing and restoration. Right. And then they talk about this album to be released October 6th called Father's Day. Right. So they turned it all into a bit of a commercial. But at the end of the day, you know, for me, and Kirk realizes, I think, that there are many Black men grappling with this. And so, you know, whether you choose to look at it like it's purely about him selling an album or whether you choose to look at it like he wants to share this with brothers who have gone through some variation of this, you can go either way with it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to see 3 generations of men restored on one level or another. And it gives me hope for, brothers who have not been able to resolve these things. Because there are many of us that haven't. I mean, I shouldn't say us. It took, It probably took until my, late 20s, if not early 30s, before my father and I got on the same plane. And now, love him to death. You know what I mean? My father and I get along really well. But that took a lot of time to get to, a lot of battles, a lot of back and forth before we finally reconciled a lot of that. And I want to see more of my brothers be able to do that, not only with their own sons, but with their own fathers and grandfathers if possible. I want to see a restoration of the continuum of Black men within families. And here's the thing, the Black family has always had to embrace non-blood related family as a concept. We've had to, because we lived in a situation where your family could be sold at any moment, right? So it's called fictive kin in the field in Africana studies. But the idea was you basically built family with who was there, right? Who participated, who made themselves a part of it. That's the reality of the Black family. And it's a practical product of being raised in an environment where somebody could be lynched, somebody could be sold, somebody could be violated in any kind of way, in terms of violence, in terms of sex, at any point in time. When you live that reality, there are going to be different types of family practices that come into play. So with the Black family, even if your lineage, as it were, is not entirely intact in regard to your father, your grandfather, your uncles, your sons, even if you've had to adapt in an informal way, other people as family, embrace it, engage it, especially amongst us. We have got to do this in order to restore some type of continuum. And I don't even care if you SYSBM. At the end of the day, whatever family you're going to produce, if you just decide to go that route, you need to be able to establish links and make sure the relationships we create are sound, because many of us are learning how to do it. This is what Kirk Franklin is grappling with. He's learning how to establish family at 53 years old. That's what he's dealing with. This is the fallout of Black dysfunction. It is what it is. You got to start from where you are and build it from there. So I can just say, to my brothers who are here, if you don't have this relationship with sons, fathers, grandfathers, if this is not a reality, I urge you to do what you can, if for no other reason, for your son's sake, to make sure we establish this continuum of manhood within family units. And here's the thing. If for any reason you're not able to do that and you have to be the first, then be the goddamn first. And don't let it flow any further. Don't let the dysfunction go any further than you. If you find out that you're Kirk Franklin, but you don't have a 70-something-year-old father waiting on you, hey, reestablish the bonds with your sons, if you can. Most particularly, do what we need to do to restore manhood amongst each other. It's not just about, steel sharpening steel. It's also about connection. It's also about bonding as men. And there's so much that we need to inherit from one another. We just need to invest. When I look at, this kind of tree of fatherhood, if you will, it's not just my biological father. I mean, the reality of Black relationships is what it is. I've told y'all about my stepfather who passed away earlier this year. Shout out to James Everett Sr. Right? A good damn man. Wasn't perfect. Did the best he could. Made his mistakes. But I'll tell you one thing. Whenever I called, he answered. When I had a question, he Gave his best from his own life experience to give me the truth as he understood it. He was honest, brutally so. But it didn't come from a place of resentment or hate. It came from an attempt to help. And he even offered, when I moved to Fresno, to actually be a grandfather to my son. I was so taken aback by that. I never heard that before. I never had anyone ask me if they could play that role. Shout out to Black Nerd Talks. Thanks for sharing. This is going to be an important watch with my wife. Though I'm Nigerian in Canada, we need to change the conversation about Black and ADOS men as fathers. Indeed. Yeah, definitely watch this. But yeah, so I embrace, even though he's no longer here, I embrace the wisdom he extended to me. I embrace the love and wisdom my father has extended to me. My grandfather, who I was very close with, I will never forget him. He used to send me cassette tapes because he lived in Brooklyn and I was growing up in the Bay Area. He would send me cassette tapes of his reflections on life. And he also wrote a book of poems, a book of poetry that I have a copy of. But to be honest with you, those cassette tapes mean the world to me. Passing on his wisdom in whatever medium he could. And I'm going to pass those cassettes on to my son. So even my grandchildren can hear their great-grandfather. These are the kind of ways we need to think about this continuum of manhood in our own families. What are you doing to pass your wisdom on? And I would include on another level, even your mentees. If you have no sons, but you have mentees who y'all know the deal in the Black community, a young man who is technically your mentee will damn near treat you like a father. Y'all know what it is. If you're coaches, if you're mentors, you already know. I can tell you, I have scores of sons and daughters from teaching for the last 25 years. And being a mentor prior to that, I have scores of sons and daughters, many of whom never met their actual fathers. And they've imbued on me the responsibility of playing that role to one degree or another. Some are more, adamant about it than others. But how seriously are you going to take it when a young man comes to you and asks for guidance? And you know what he's asking for is not just advice in the next 30 seconds. Can you play a role in his life? Are you willing to extend that? I have young men that routinely come to my house and chop it up, tell me their problems, share their joys, all of that. You know all they really want from me, aside from some insight from time to time? Just to be there. Just to extend a hand, have a conversation, give some insight, laugh a little bit. For some of them, it's the closest to a father they've ever had. And I know I'm not alone. And it can be in such informal situations. I don't care if it's a young man that you work with at the job or whatever. You know how this goes. The shit happens wherever it happens. Because that's the reality of Black life, unfortunately. Especially for young men. So personally, I would urge you to answer the call as a mentor. To give some direction. To share some of the game that you had to get hard. You had to get it out of the mud. And in some instances, nobody told you. Share it with someone so they don't have to have that experience. I urge you to do that. I don't care if you SYSBM. I don't care if I don't really care what our orientation is. Engage these young men. Right? Because truth be told, what this story tells me is it ain't just the young ones. The very mention, the very rumor that Kirk Franklin had a living biological father sent him through all kinds of shit just at the very word of it being mentioned at a funeral where a man said, I used to date his mother or whatever. He's 53 years old, and a passing statement at a funeral that he wasn't even at could have the impact it had on him. Tells you how deep this is for us. Shout out to Urban Naturalists. Appreciate that support. Shout out to I don't want to give his government away. Shout out to where you go? Dark Power. Appreciate that. And the Cash App. But on the real, man, if you get a chance, watch this. I'll put the link in the description box again, and I will share it in the comments again if you get a chance. Some of the visuals do have to be seen. That's why I tried to start this show by actually showing them, because some things you do need to see. But at the end of the day, man, this is not something that anything or anyone else is going to be able to resolve. And I'm not saying to do it so that women are not held responsible for their end in this. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in this instance, make it about him. Make it about you. Make it about your sons. Make it about your fathers. Make it about your grandfathers. Make it about your grandsons if it goes to that. Prioritize them in a way that nobody may have prioritized you. Even if it ain't about, buying, paying bills and helping them monetarily. It doesn't even have to be about that. Sometimes it could just be a conversation. But the fact that you're willing to validate their fucking lives by just talking to them and letting them know they matter as black men, as human beings, the fact that they matter and you're willing to take the time to sit down and have a conversation with them. Real talk, man. Anyway, I love you, brothers. I look forward to hearing your comments, your thoughts about this. And I do sincerely apologize for how I had to do this. You had to sit there and you only got to see the picture while we kind of went through this. But I do appreciate, those of you who stood with it and watched it or listened to it with me. But I really am looking forward to your comments. So please lay that out. Let me know. Shout out to Charles Faulkner. What's good? Brother Malika. Let me know your thoughts, y'all. In the meantime, y'all have a good one. I'll holler at y'all soon. Peace.